So in this video, I'm going to talk about queues within Dynamics 365 for Sales. Now, queues are quite an interesting thing because they don't get talked about very much in terms of Dynamics 365 for Sales. They're very much considered to be a feature of customer service in terms of sort of managing cases, but actually they've got some really strong sales user cases, and I want to sort of touch on those. So let's go into the system. I'll show you what I mean. Now, I've kind of illustrated this by putting a couple of items on the side menu here. We've got queues and queue items. Now, I probably wouldn't typically have queues displayed here, but just to illustrate, you can see we've got a very long list of queues in the system, and that is simply because every user, and these are system users that we're seeing on the screen at the moment, gets allocated a queue by default by the system. But we can create additional queues in the system, and that's creating the system backend, and those are typically going to be either private or public queues. Public means anybody can work on them. Private means selected individuals or teams can work on them, and queues can be set up for pretty much any entity type, any record type within the CRM system, so it's not limited to cases. Now, a typical use case, in fact, let me just go on to queue items. So queues, so you've got the queue, and then you've got items in the queue, and it's going to be some items in my queue here. You can see the views. By default, it's coming up with items I'm working on that, I've picked these items on, and these items up from a queue, and I'm working on them. I can change that to all items, and then I've got another drop-down one, which are the one I'm in at the moment. It's queues I'm a member of. Probably the most powerful use case for this, and this is actually kind of what we've got set up here. So the setup on this is that we've got an inquiries at inbox, then any email comes into that, and then the system will effectively look at it, and it will say, just some criteria in terms of the subject line of the email. If it's obviously a lead, it creates a lead record and puts it into a lead queue. If it's something else, it puts it into an inquiries queue as an email record for handling. So we do that sort of splitting, and you've got this ability to set up routing rules around your queues as well. So this is kind of what it looks like. I can start to see items for me to work on. Before I go into the actual sort of features around handling queue items, I just wanted to say that if you are using Dynamics and for you're not quite getting the most out of it, and you want some guidance on potential next steps, then feel very free to reach out. To put a link in the description below. Always happy to have a chat with people about their particular situation. So let's go back to queue and queue items. So the idea here is I might be a member of multiple queues. So in our example, we're talking about maybe emails coming in from the inquiries app that need handling. There could be all sorts of things. They could be leads. They could be people looking for employment, sending in their CVs. There could be complaints. There could be service issues. They need to be handled in a consistent and structured way within the system. In our case, we split those between emails and leads. I'm in the leads queue at the moment, and you can see test lead. If I select one of these, we now get some additional buttons appear on the top here, and this is around our queue item management and the things that we can do. Now you can see for this particular lead, so its type is a lead, it's in a test queue that I created. This is a test, and it's blank in terms of being worked on. So it sits in the queue with the status of not being worked on effectively. Now, if I wanted to pick that up and work on it, I can just click on the pick. It's asking me, do I want to remove it from the queue? But I don't. So I'm going to pick that and let that whir away in the background for a second. So now you can see that that has allocated I've picked that, and that is now being worked on by me. Now I could then select that if I wanted to. I could, let's say I started working on it, and actually this is a bit more complex, it's not my area. I could then route that onto somebody else if I wish to. So I can route to another queue, and I can then select the queue I want to route it to, or I could route it to a user or individual, and I just specify, the user or team, and I just specify that user and team. I'm not going to do that in this particular case. Now let's say I've pick this up. I'm said I'm going to work on it. Again, maybe it's not for me. I just want to put it back in the queue for somebody else. Then if I want to, I can release that item. And if I just click on release, you can now see that's no longer being worked on. That is going to be just part of the central queue. And the other thing I could do is I can remove it. It's just, it's not relevant. It's not something we need to be handling. And then the other area I've got is this queue items details, which if I click on that, just gives me some more information. And also got information like audit history and things like that. This is this is a slightly bizarre UI. Sorry, I didn't mean to refresh that. So let me just go back to that again. I'll just show that queue items detail. Slightly bizarre UI. You can save and close it. Well, I haven't actually changed any things, but if I want to actually close it down, I'll just click on the three dots and click close. So slightly odd UI. So effectively what we can do is set up these queues and have the team looking at, being members of the queues, picking up work, working on it, and, it gives us our ability to process things like inquiries at. Now, the real power of this, to my mind, is it potentially gets rid of that big issue of trying to manage things through shared inboxes. So I've seen a lot of companies try and sort of manage inquiries at, leads at, complaints at, cases at through a shared inbox. So the idea being it comes into shared inbox, there's lots of people sort of working on that, and they try and work within that inbox environment. Now that generally doesn't work very well. Inboxes, it's not very easy to assign people to work on particular incoming emails. It's very easy to duplicate activity, have the same people working on emails. It's very difficult to report on it. You effectively are tracking information in a separate system, which ideally you might want in your CRM system. So you kind of got potentially valuable information stuck in a data silo in its own right. So as soon as you've got multiple people working on a shared inbox, that gets incredibly messy. It's really inefficient way of working. And this is a very quick and easy solution for that. We can just route those into the CRM system as whatever we want and manage them within that with proper process, proper reporting, proper oversight, proper management. Anyway, that's queues. Really powerful feature. Not quite sure why it has such a low profile in terms of the Dynamics for Sales capabilities, but certainly something that you might want to use if you're using shared inboxes particularly. This is something you should be looking very carefully at. Anyway, hopefully that's been helpful. This is one in quite a range of videos we've done on Dynamics 365 for Sales, so feel very free to check out the channel. Also, as I said before, if you need any help with Dynamics, there is links below for that. But thank you anyway. Appreciate your time today, and hopefully catch up with you soon.